Hi, ESL 101 students. This is a really quick review of the simple present, which is in Unit 1 of your textbook. Again, I know you know this. You know this. We're just going through it really quickly. So the simple present, as we remember from 100 or from other English study, is for facts. It's for things that are always true, such as Washington, D.C. is the capital of the United States. It's also for habits and routines, such as on Saturdays, notice the plural, we often drive up to Frederick. And we learned in the last class that habits and routines often include adverbs of frequency. Whenever we learn a new verb tense, we have to learn how to use be, and we have to learn how to use other forms because be is different from everything else. So, be. I am an English teacher. I am not a French teacher. You are a student at PGCC. You are not a student at HCC. He is an engineer. He is not a nurse practitioner. Are you tired today? Why is he frustrated? All of this you should remember from before. Now, we also have the verb have. I have a son. I don't have a daughter. He has a meeting later. He does not have an iPhone. Not haven't, right? It's does not have. Do you have a headache? Why does he have a cast on his foot? And then all the other verbs. I enjoy meeting people from other countries. I do not enjoy parties. He enjoys skiing. He doesn't enjoy doing math homework. Do you enjoy dancing? Why does she want to leave early? So just remember in English, well, American English, have is like all other verbs. In negatives and questions, it's going to have the helping verbs do and does. And later we're going to see that it can use did, etc., etc. Whenever we learn a new verb tense, we also learn how to make the affirmative, negative, yes, no, WH subject question, and other WH question for be and then for all the other verbs. So, the affirmative, James and Paul are students. They study at PGCC. The negative, James and Paul aren't students. They don't study at PGCC. The yes/no question, are James and Paul students? Do they study at PGCC? Look at the WH subject question very carefully. Who is a student? Who studies at PGCC? Most of the time, a WH subject question is going to have singular agreement, even if the answer is plural. All right, and then all the other WH questions are your WH word followed by yes or no question grammar. So where are James and Paul students? And where do James and Paul study? Okay, so back to those adverbs of frequency. Again, we will use adverbs of frequency to talk about how often we do something. That's a fact, a habit, or a routine. And it's on a spectrum. Never is, well, obviously 0%, all the way up to always, which is 100% of the time. So if you've got be, and it's an affirmative statement, put the adverb after the main verb. I am often hungry after class. For all other verbs, you put the adverb before the main verb. He usually arrives early. And that's important. Never put an adverb between a verb and its object. That sounds very French if you do. All right. If you're making a question, put the adverb before the main verb. Do you usually take the bus? Does he ever watch TV? And there's some words that can be more flexible. Sometimes, occasionally, normally, often, and usually. They can be at the beginning, the middle, or the end of a sentence. At this point, I want you to pause the slide and take out your notebook. I want you to make some sample sentences about your life. This is just practice. I want you to make 5 sentences in the simple present tense using the verb be, and I want you to make 5 sentences in the simple present tense using a variety of other verbs. So like have, play, work, study, eat, whatever. But in each sentence, I want you to use never, rarely, sometimes, occasionally, and often, just to practice using those adverbs of frequency. Again, it's a quick review. When you've written your own sentences, go on to the next slide and we can talk about my sample sentences. Okay, so here's some samples that I made. So again, when the main verb is be, it comes after the main verb. So he is never late to class. They are rarely sick. I am sometimes in the mood for a walk. The child is occasionally naughty. You are often helpful. Now remember, those last three can actually be beginning, middle, or end. So I can say sometimes I'm in the mood for a walk. I'm in the mood for a walk sometimes. I can say occasionally the child is naughty. Or I can say the child is naughty occasionally. Often you are helpful often. Okay, so we've got some flexibility with those last three, but not with never and rarely. Now again, with the other verbs, it's going to come before the main verb. So I never have time to watch TV. Bob rarely eats meat. The students sometimes take tests. We occasionally have quizzes. She often sends me text messages. And again, for those last three, it could be in the beginning, the middle, or the end of the sentence. So, because the simple present is covered in 100, it's assumed that you already know it. This was really just a very quick review. You may, though, want to search for more examples on the internet, and you should probably refresh your spelling rules, because if you were in the 100 class with me, you probably learned that some of the spelling in English, especially for the third person singular, can be tricky. All right, once you're done with that, go on to mini lecture 2. No quiz, no assignment yet.